And if you jilt a guy for not thinking enough about Black Lives Matter, just tell me this. What have you actually done that made any more of a difference in any black life than what your inadequate ex-fiancee did? I asked Senator Adam Schiff here last week when the subject of Trump's sliding poll numbers came up. Okay, but how are the Democrats going to blow it this time? This is how. Posturing, purity tests, the politics of I unfriend you if you're not exactly with me 1,000%. Barack Obama used to preach that the perfect is the enemy of the good. Yeah, it's also the enemy of getting away.
Sometimes it really feels like society has gone completely off the rails. Picture this, you're standing at the altar moments away from getting married. The guests are seated, the music is ready, and the celebration is about to begin. Then, out of nowhere, the entire wedding is canceled. Not because of betrayal or dishonesty, but because one partner didn't express strong enough opinions about a social movement. Believe it or not, this isn't satire or a comedy sketch. It actually happened on reality television. Welcome to a moment where romance isn't just about connection anymore, it's about ideological alignment. Before we dive deeper, if you enjoy sharp cultural commentary that challenges trends and asks uncomfortable questions, go ahead and like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. You won't want to miss what comes next. Bill Maher recently highlighted this story on Real Time, and it's one of those situations that sounds fictional until you realize it isn't. A bride called off her wedding because her fiancé admitted he hadn't thought deeply about certain social issues, not because he was cruel or dishonest, but because he didn't have the right level of engagement. Maher summed it up perfectly with a joke. Love isn't blind anymore. It's ideological. Beneath the humor, though, was a serious observation. Political identity and moral signaling are increasingly shaping personal relationships. Dating and marriage now come with unwritten belief requirements. It's no longer enough to be caring, dependable, or supportive. You're also expected to have polished opinions on every trending topic of the moment.
Before they can take on Donald Trump, Democrats have to decide which wing of their own party is best to lead them out of the wilderness. And when I say that, I'm sure you can all guess what recent incident in the news I'm thinking about. The season 8 finale of Love is Blind. Now, if you didn't see it, well, first of all, fuck you. It's absolutely the best dating show with love and blind in the title. But here's what happened. The bride, an impressive, attractive nurse named Sarah Carton, walked out on her dream wedding to sales consultant Ben Mazenga. They were at the altar, all dressed up, almost to the part where they eat cake and do the electric slide. When Sarah broke the news to her man that she just couldn't go through.
What's even more striking is that neutrality is no longer acceptable. Saying, "I haven't really formed an opinion," is treated as a moral failure. In today's climate, silence isn't viewed as uncertainty. It's interpreted as guilt. If you're not loudly expressing the correct stance, people assume you're part of the problem. That shift is remarkable. We've moved from healthy disagreement to an environment where total alignment is demanded. Maher pointed out how damaging this mindset is, not just for relationships but for society as a whole. Constant posturing and ideological policing push people away rather than bringing them together. Even former leaders have warned that perfectionism can derail progress. Maher added his own blunt twist, noting that this mentality doesn't just hurt politics, it ruins dating too. When every potential partner has to pass a rigid belief test, the pool of acceptable people shrinks rapidly. Over time, movements built on exclusion don't expand. They collapse inward.
He had not done the work on this issue.
When I asked him about it, he was like, "I guess I've never really thought too much about it."
And that's when Sarah realized she'd rather die alone. Because love isn't blind, it's woke. Well, now, to be fair to Sarah, it wasn't just Black Lives Matter. Ben also didn't have much to say about the vaccine. And his position on trans was basically, I don't know, I guess. Sarah's sister is gay, and when she told that to Ben, Ben said he had, quote, no discomfort around that community at all. Not good enough, Ben.
Maher's broader argument is that this obsession with moral purity doesn't strengthen progressive causes. It makes them unbearable to many people. You can't build a successful movement by constantly judging and dismissing anyone who falls slightly out of line. It wears people down. It alienates potential allies. Maher even questioned how this mindset could cost Democrats future elections, pointing out that relentless purity tests and performative outrage replace practical problem solving. When everyone is competing to appear the most morally superior, very little actually gets accomplished. Politics becomes more about signaling than results, and nobody truly benefits from that.
Let me tell you, folks, if the standards on the left are going to be this high and politics is going to be this much of a cock block, we're never going to win elections or have any more babies. This inclination from certain liberals to always and immediately excommunicate instead of communicate is what makes them so unlikable. And I'm sorry, Sarah, to make you the poster child for this, but come on. I mean, look at this stiff. What'd you expect?
What makes the situation even more ironic is that the loudest voices enforcing these standards often haven't contributed meaningfully to the causes they champion. Maher called this out directly, questioning whether public moral performance actually improves anyone's life. Talking, posting, and virtue signaling are easy. Real impact requires effort, sacrifice, and follow-through. Yet, in the social media age, appearing to care has become more important than doing something tangible. Maher joked that if these standards keep escalating, people won't just lose elections. They'll struggle to form families or lasting relationships. You can't build communities on fear of saying the wrong thing, and you can't expect love to flourish under constant ideological scrutiny.
Okay, you're a much better person than he is. You win. And by win, I mean lose. Christ, first we couldn't date people who had opposite political beliefs. Now we can't even date them if they have no opinion at all. It's enough to make you lose faith in finding true love on a reality streaming series. Because if you're going to eliminate every 20-something who hasn't thought a lot about politics, you're going to be working from a smaller pool than roadies with no leg tattoos.
At its core, healthy relationships are built on trust, humor, understanding, and forgiveness, not on memorized talking points. But the issue extends beyond dating. This purity-driven mindset has seeped into everyday conversation. Disagreement is treated as betrayal, and dialogue is replaced with rejection. That isn't progress. The social breakdown. Maher pointed out that not everyone has the time or energy to deeply engage with every political or cultural debate. Many people are focused on surviving, working, and figuring out their lives. That doesn't make them immoral. It makes them human. Someone not having a fully formed stance on every issue used to be considered reasonable. Now it's treated as unacceptable. Ironically, the same voices that promote tolerance often show the least patience for uncertainty or dissent.
And let's be clear, Ben didn't say, you know, I have thought about Black Lives Matter and I'm with Derek Chauvin. No, he said, I'm young and dumb and full of fantasy football stats. Could we just talk about it? I'm sorry, I'm not up to the part of my life yet where I give a shit about the issues. Should he? Of course. We all should do a lot of things. I should meditate and finish Moby Dick and learn to get to sleep without a gummy.
Maher joked that if we exclude everyone who hasn't deeply analyzed every political topic, the dating pool will be smaller than ever. The joke lands because it's rooted in truth. Relationships are turning into ideological interviews instead of personal connections. Instead of asking whether two people are compatible, we're asking whether they pass a belief checklist. That approach leads to isolation. When standards are rigid and unforgiving, fewer people will ever meet them. And at some point, it's worth asking whether the expectations themselves are the problem.
But maybe Ben hasn't turned his life over to being a social justice warrior yet because he's preoccupied with trying to get his life going. Possibly because he's worried about having the means to support the woman he thought he was going to marry, who seems rather demanding and particular. Which is kind of how it is these days. Did you know that on Bumble, only 15% of the women are willing to date a man under 5'8".
You can't build love from a checklist, and you can't build unity by constantly dividing people. That's the larger warning Maher is making. He isn't just poking fun at one extreme story, he's highlighting a cultural trend that's disconnecting people from reality. The same habits that damage personal relationships are also damaging political movements. When every word, pause, or question is policed, people don't feel inspired, they feel anxious. Coalitions shrink, echo chambers grow, and elections are lost. Maher also criticized media coverage for amplifying outrage because it generates attention, not because it reflects everyday life. A loud minority is often presented as the majority, distorting how people perceive the world.
I know you've all been told that you can have it all, and you're a queen and a lady boss, but maybe your judging is no prize either. And if you...
That distortion convinces many that constant outrage is normal, when most people simply want to live peacefully without fear of being judged for every imperfect thought. Maher's underlying message is straightforward. When everything becomes a moral test, everyone eventually fails. A culture obsessed with purity ends up excluding more people than it includes. Calls for openness ring hollow when disagreement isn't tolerated. Freedom of thought loses meaning when only approved ideas are allowed.
And if you jilt a guy for not thinking enough about Black Lives Matter, just tell me this. What have you actually done that made any more of a difference in any black life than what your inadequate ex-fiancé did? I asked Senator Adam Schiff here last week when the subject of Trump's sliding poll numbers came up. Okay, but how are the Democrats going to blow it this time? This is how. Posturing, purity tests, the politics of I unfriend you if you're not exactly with me 1,000%. Barack Obama used to preach that the perfect is the enemy of the good. Yeah, it's also the enemy at getting laid.
So what's the answer? It's simpler than it sounds. Take a step back. Allow room for learning, growth, and even uncertainty. Not every issue requires an immediate, polished opinion. Sometimes, I'm still figuring it out, is the most honest response. A little humility and patience could go a long way toward restoring real conversation and real connection. If neutrality continues to be treated as wrongdoing and purity tests replace genuine understanding, more people will feel disconnected and discouraged. Before judging others for not saying enough, it's worth asking what actually creates meaningful change. Sharing opinions online isn't the same as helping people, and outrage isn't the same as empathy. On that point, Maher makes a compelling case. Society doesn't need more tests, it needs more listening. Politics doesn't need more anger, it needs perspective. And relationships don't need ideological perfection, they need humanity. Thanks for watching. If this breakdown resonated with you, hit like, subscribe, and let me know your thoughts in the comments. Do you think purity culture is hurting relationships and politics? Or is this just a temporary phase? Let's talk below.